Welcome to another week of Start the Week with Wisdom. Thanks again for joining us. My name is Bridget Burns. I'm the Executive Director of the University Innovation Alliance.
Hi, I'm Paul Fain, News Editor over at Inside Higher Ed.
And each week I partner with a journalist to interview a sitting college president or chancellor to surface their insights and their wisdom as we are navigating complex waters to try and give you a little bit of hope and inspiration for the week ahead. This is Start the Week with Wisdom.
And this week, we're excited to speak with Dr. Renu Khator, President of the University of Houston, Chancellor of the University of Houston System. She's been in that role for the past decade, beginning in 2008. President Khator, good to see you. Thanks very much for speaking with us.
Well, good to see you too, Paul and Bridget. Thank you for inviting me.
So we know that you have a lot going on right now, so this was an actual sacrifice to be here. So thanks.
And we will stick to our half hour, most definitely. So. To build on that, obviously a lot going on in Houston at the university. We've been following what you all are doing at Inside Higher Ed. Can you tell us a little bit about where the plan stands for the fall and how you're holding up as President and Chancellor?
Well, thank you so much for asking. You're right. It is there's a lot going on right now in Houston. It's kind of plateaued, but it's at a very high level. So we are all quite concerned. We are all looking at all of the indicators for public health, as well as for trying to see what we can do in 3 weeks from now. And our plan is to open the campus, but with as much flexibility and compassion as possible, which means that we will have classes in different modes. The students can self-select whether they want to come to campus. And if they do come to campus, all of the requirements are in place, mask and social distancing and all of the hygienes and everything. They have to take a mandatory training. And then faculty can self-select whether they want to teach in a high flex or they want to teach online synchronous or asynchronous. And so we're just basically giving all the possible options there. And we hope that things can be contained. So we basically, all I say is we plan for every kind of scenario, but we hope for the best.
That's great. And I know that the information comes by the minute, and higher ed doesn't know more than other people, right? So people are expecting us to somehow have a crystal ball, and we don't. And what I want to talk to you about is how you are handling decision fatigue. Are there any things that you do, because I know you have to make a million really high stakes decisions on a regular basis, and that's really overwhelming for most people. And I know that folks who work for you, folks who work throughout higher ed, those are at home. Any tips that have helped you in this moment?
So these are very challenging times. We are making constantly big decisions, having huge impact, and we are doing it with less than full information. So I will be the first one to admit that it is overwhelming at times. It is definitely exhausting. And I can feel that on my team members. So last week we decided it was going to be lights out for the whole week, no meetings at all. As for me personally, I try to just say that I need to be in the balcony so that I can see, the bigger picture, what's going on, because it's so easy to be drawn into day-to-day things and into, items that just completely absorb you. But it is up to you to really get to the balcony so that you can see a little bit ahead and you can see a little bit more comprehensively. So that's what I try to tell my team members. Personally, I do yoga and meditation. That really helps me. I do gardening. That helps me. I always ask my teammates, what are they doing for their mental health? I've tried to do some wine gatherings in the evening times. So I feel like as a leader, my job is to make sure that I can relieve some of the stress from my team members, because it's been 5 months now and we don't know, it could be 5-6 months more. We try to read common books together. So there's just a lot of different things, but I think mental health is really, really important piece, because we may not realize and we may just be getting so stressed. And I don't want that kind of thing to happen either to my team, to my faculty or staff or the students. So communication becomes really important, and encouraging words become really very important.
That's great. And people can't make great decisions if they're not mentally resilient. And I love that you're leading with humanity first, because that's really that's how that kind of modeling in leadership is critical right now. We can't say everyone, make sure to take care of yourselves, but then the next sentence be asking for 10 more things.
Yeah, and really interesting to me to hear how you actually get some time off, because I imagine in your role often that's almost impossible to do. Related to that, can you talk a little bit about how you balance having to move fast on incredibly important decisions with such high stakes, with shifting variables, as you mentioned, on a daily basis, if not quicker than that, while also running an institution that has so many constituencies that need to be at the table? How do you manage all of that together at once?
Well, this is the time when you rely on your team. You have to know where your limitations are. You have to trust people, which means you have to assemble a team that you can trust. And in that case, I would say I'm very fortunate. First thing is I've been here at this institution for 12 years. And that means I know people in Houston. I know people in Austin. I know people in my university. I'm not in a new environment. I can count on them. And I think the second most important thing is you got to let people do their job, because otherwise, if you are trying to do things that can be done by somebody else, then who is going to do things that are absolutely only can be done by you? You have to actually, as I said before, you have to take a much more holistic, comprehensive look at it. And if you constantly are in the weeds, then you can't do that. I've got a great team here. I also always continue to ask the faculty and staff, what is it that we can do? Because I know that my brain is only one brain, but collectively we have a brain that really can find the solutions that otherwise we can't. So from the very beginning, I try to put, either groups or task forces, try to see, okay, what's the best solution for us? And then when you make the decision, you have to own it, because as a leader, that's what you have to do. And one other thing I know for sure, that there are people on the two extremes of every kind of issue. And in crisis, those extremes become even more important, which means that there are going to be people who will really complain hard and just simply not agree on both ends of it, no matter what decision you make. What is important is not to really get lost in those, just simply admit their anxiety level, accept it, that this is very natural for them to do. But you have to find your own center for gravity, which you must have within you. And you have to always come back to that and say, okay, this is from where I need to make decision. And once you make it, you own it up. You can't just say that this decision was made by the committee. Yeah, in the end, I did it. And that, I think, just kind of helps in so many different ways. But I'll tell you, I keep talking to people. I pick up the phone and call my faculty members. If I see something, I'll call some staff members and just ask, I saw this and this, help me a little bit, or what do you know about this? And I think that's important. So the exhausting thing is to be with everybody on the ground floor at the same time when you are pulled to be in the balcony. So every morning, I just take a stock of things as to what are the major decisions immediately next. And when I meet with my team, I ask them, what are the hot topics, so that they can get it out of their system, and then we can focus on things. And I think it has so far worked here well with us, and we'll just continue to do as best as we can.
I love that. That's super helpful for folks in terms of crystallizing exactly how to, keep yourself on purpose each morning. And for those of you who are watching live, just know that we do, you can post a comment either Facebook, LinkedIn, or on Periscope, and we can actually elevate it here and we can raise those for President Khator. I'm curious about, there's been a lot of change, more than any of us would really like at this moment. But I'm wondering if there are some changes that you're particularly proud of that happened that you'd actually like to keep a change. There are some things in this moment I'm curious if you actually like to stay in this newly evolved way.
So I think we were never doing this much communication before, and I can see the value of it. So I think there are certain things in the communication that will change. Of course, we realize the value of this virtual environment. I know it's very exhausting to engage people in the virtual environment. Right now, when we are meeting virtually, let's say even with my donors and all, we are doing so because we already know them. The relationships are established, but to establish new relationships is really hard. But what we have learned during this time is that the virtual environment can be extremely helpful in so many different things. We don't need to travel so much. I mean, I find that I can get 30 minutes or 10 minutes of somebody's time much faster now in this virtual environment than trying to get a time so that I can travel, let's say, to California or to travel somewhere else. So I think that piece is going to be important. One thing I'm absolutely amazed is how quickly, how fast we adopted and embraced technology. I know there were so many faculty, and one who lives in my house, because my husband is a professor, they said, there's no way they can teach their content online. No way at all that's possible. And now that they have experimented with it, I know that there will be certain degree of that integration, or maybe possibly even reaching out to a larger audience would become possible. So we were forced to experiment with technology, but now that we have, I think we have found a lot of really good things that will definitely stay with us. In terms of operations, I've realized that too. I feel sometimes I'm a lot more productive today just because I can, instead of having a 2-hour meeting where there's a lot of other things too, I can get things done in 45 minutes and just get going. So there are so many of those things that I think will stay with us. And one other thing, I think the way I've altered my personal life, I realize there are so many things I always wanted to do, but I never got to doing it. And I think personally, I like to keep some of those things in my routine because they're definitely good, like meditation. I just think I was always doing it, but much shorter. And now I realize, well, that's really, really helping me in just keeping me centered.
It's wonderful.
And if you haven't tried meditation, to try it now. I think that's a good advice for everyone right now. Just to piggyback on Bridget's question, an institution as complex and varied as the University of Houston has a lot of planning in the works at all times. You've got a strategic plan that's your North Star that you work toward. When I think about what's happened in higher ed right now in the country more broadly, it's accelerated a lot of the change that we kind of knew was coming, that we were planning for. Are there any pieces, any goals that Houston was working toward that you feel like you've had to move very quickly on, but are that you're moving in the right direction in ways maybe faster than you had hoped?
Right. So one thing we already had in Houston, where I know many others are looking into it, and that is we are a system of higher education with 4 universities. But we realized that we could actually do it differently. But for us, 20 years ago, they changed the system where I serve both as a system head as well as a campus head. And now many other systems are looking into that it's totally possible to do. For us, I think we are in such a large metropolis. We are with 6 million people. I mean, higher population than 30 some states. And for us, we just always wanted to be much better synced with our own region's economy. And I think this opportunity now that we've used as an opportunity, this time has given us to look into it very, very closely and very clearly. What is it that's immediately going to be needed for the economy and what will be at the long term? So we have started several micro-credentialing courses, which I think are going extremely well, very well. We have also started to look much deeper because this crisis has revealed that what kind of disparity has existed, whether it's technology, whether it's healthcare. And although we have always been conscious about it, I think this has given us an opportunity to really dig deep into it, to really listen and to figure it out what tangible we can do. And I think those couple of those initiatives within Houston will serve us really well. Let me point out one more thing too. We started our College of Medicine. I mean, starting a brand new College of Medicine is is a hard thing anyway. We had to do so in the middle of this pandemic. What it has done is that even though it was our commitment that we were going to be focused on community health, public health, will be focused on primary care, preventive care, this has absolutely given a double conviction to the students as well as to the faculty and to the entire college to really build it something that is going to be a critical piece for Houston and for this region, but also will be very important for the nation. So I think there are some experimental things that are going on. One of the things we've done, I've put a committee together to really think about the best minds in the university, to think about what will the new normal be. In other words, what will the post-vaccine world look like? What will be the workspace? What would be the classroom? What would be recruiting? What would be research? What would be college sports? Everything. So we're going to put together a white paper type thing that we can widely circulate on campus, and then we'll try to see, okay, if that is the different scenarios or one scenario, whatever comes out from these bright minds, how is it that we position ourselves, keep ourselves relevant, and make ourselves even more critical to the economy and to society's welfare?
Great. I appreciate that, especially that you're being forward thinking and inviting faculty to be a part of crafting kind of the future. I am curious about, you had an extensive career before this, and you've obviously been in leadership for quite some time. Are there lessons from earlier in your career that you're really relying upon right now, or is there a particular book or something that the wisdom is you're drawing upon in terms of how you lead in this moment?
So in terms of reading books and all, I always read, leadership books, but more than leadership books, I like to read biographies or autobiographies of people, because I'm always fascinated as to how ordinary people do extraordinary things. So there are many of those lessons you just, it's hard to pinpoint. I don't use any framework, because at the end of the day, you have to do things, you have to make decisions based on your gut, your intuition, and based on your experiences and your collected wisdom to all this time. So I don't have a particular framework that I can tell you, but I know for sure that there have been incidences before and the lessons learned that continue to help me. And I hope this time around you do, that I can do a better job, and you continue to hope for that. So being in Houston, we've had crisis, of course, a totally different type. This is totally new type thing. But we have dealt with hurricanes, and not just one. In my time, we have had 2 major hurricanes and some other storms here. And the 2 principles that we founded, we said that we were going to start working on from the very beginning, are still continuing today, which is flexibility and compassion. If there is a crisis time, you have to feel it, not just from the point of view of your students, but also your faculty and staff and for your community. So right now also, we should just keep providing as much flexibility as possible. We know people are going to have children at home. They might have sick people at home. They might have elderly at home, other than their own vulnerabilities about their health. There could be these obligations. So on campus, basically, what we are saying is it's okay. You work from home. It's no problem. And many times I'll tell you, the professionals will say that if we did this, some people will take advantage. My point is always that 1 or 2% people may take advantage of the system or the loopholes and the flexibility you give, but why make 98% suffer for it? So flexibility is one thing. And second thing is compassion. You got to trust your supervisors. And we have given authority to our supervisors to basically work with their unit. Don't say that we need to have 10% or 25% or 50% people on campus physically. We say you need to review everything based on functionality of your unit, functionality of your people. You can perform the function. Some people may stay home. Some people may come. Some may come 2 days. Some may come 5 days. Some may come half the time. Whatever it takes. And I think it has served us very well after the hurricanes and the storms, and right now also is helping us tremendously. Easiest thing for us is to close the campus, and who knows what happens in 3 weeks and where we go with that. But what we have seen is that there are people, the disparities really hurt those who should not be hurt, who need us the most. During all this time, we never closed our dorms. We just couldn't, because we had students who had nowhere else to go. We always housed about more than 1,000 students on campus. We know that people are going to need the facilities, help, and we will just try to see what we can do best, keeping in mind that your goal is something that you're not negotiating with. So what I tell my staff is, we don't negotiate with the goal. We do negotiate with the strategies. And right now the strategies are that we're going to fulfill our mission, keeping all the options available in terms of compassion and flexibility.
Well, higher education is never dull, but every question we've asked you has raised about 100 questions I'd love to ask you. Just so much going on. I really like the advice, though, of keeping flexible and delegating. Flexibility seems like an important thing right now for all of us. You know, I was thinking about the changed relationship that you described with the local economy. You know, I know the University of Houston has been a good player in the metro region for a long time. But I wonder, has your relationship with your peers at the other research universities in Texas, the institutions themselves, at the community colleges, I mean, how has that relationship shifted? Are you in more or different contact with folks, and are you collaborating or coordinating in ways that you didn't before?
Oh, absolutely. It's a very, very good point. So we all work very closely together. And so we publics work very closely together anyway. However, we've Rice University very close to us, and we constantly talk, and because we know that when it comes to the local situations is going to be the same. But what I've also noticed is that how our faculty, whatever research they were doing, they took their pieces of their research and work collaboratively with other institutions in trying to find common solutions to the problem that's in front of us, whether it's COVID related, whether it's race related. And that has been an absolutely fabulous thing to watch. And so for us, we have also come out with research grant programs where you can actually, we encourage faculty to work together. We have students who could take crisscross courses. We do that. But one more thing that we started here, which is an absolutely great experiment, that we have 13 institutions, all of the public universities in Houston and all of the community colleges, and now we are even outside of Houston. We put everybody together in one consortium, and it's called GPS Consortium, or Guided Pathways to Success. This consortium already started, but now we have been able to use this consortium to really call people together, the chancellors, presidents of higher ed together, to try to really see what together we could do, or to even learn from best practices. So I think this has really made us aware of how the sum of parts is greater than just the sums alone. And I think it's reflecting very well. And I'm really very blessed and very pleased that we are right now here in Houston.
That's wonderful. So I just have one last question, which I feel like I've gotten a bit of sense of this, that you are an optimist. But for those who are at home, or kids running around, not sure about K-12, everything going on, how are you looking at this moment with a sense of purpose and optimism and hope? And what would you share with them as a message that would hopefully give them a little bit of a boost for the next week?
Right. Well, at least for higher education, we are a purpose-driven, a mission-driven sector to begin with. I also believe that higher education in the business of giving hopes and dreams. I mean, we are in that business, and that's our mission. So while we're dealing with this crisis, we know that day-to-day things are important, but as important is the fact that there is hope, there is tomorrow, there's going to be a pathway for us. We are going to come out of it. We are going to come out of it together. and we will survive. We are resilient. I have seen how people have pulled together to work despite all of the things that are going on around here. If we look at the stories of how people have really stepped up to help one another, you look at healthcare people, and those stories are so incredibly inspiring. I have two daughters, and they are both they are both physicians. I have seen them. I have many members in the family who are healthcare workers and doctors and nurses. And I can tell you one thing, it's not just, it's the calling of their profession. What is so absolutely incredible is how they truly believe. Even if I say that, you could stay home, there's no way, because I need to go and care. Same thing I see in teachers. I see in so many other work sectors. So people are working together. There is a solution at the other end of it. It's going to happen. We just need to make sure that we do our part, we take our responsibility, and we never, ever, ever let the hope disappear. That is what humans, we are made of.
I feel like this is exactly why we created this show. That was the perfect message for the perfect time. So thank you so much, President Khator. We have been honored by your wisdom and your inspiration. We understand why the University of Houston is so lucky to have you leading both its campus and the system. So for those of you at home, we hope that this gives you a little bit of boost for the week ahead. Paul, as always, thanks for being a fantastic co-host, and we will see you all next week. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Khator.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Bridget.
Cheers.